Welcome to Joy of the Hang. I'm your host, Sharon Stevenson, and I'm so excited for today's guest. But before I introduce her, I want to take a moment to thank you for listening. If this is your first time, welcome. If you're a loyal fan, welcome back. If you love today's episode, please take a moment and share it with a friend. And be sure to click that little follow button so you never miss an episode. We drop a new show every Wednesday featuring guests who will inform and inspire you. So, put a little joy in your life and come hang for a while. Today's guest is proof that big dreams can come from small towns and that your voice can spark real change. Lexie Stevenson grew up in rural Maine and made her way to Los Angeles with talent, tenacity, and a whole lot of heart. You may know her as Maddie Ashby from The Young and the Restless, but she's also a fierce advocate, serving as chairwoman of the Endometriosis Foundation of America's Advisory Board, and a rising country music artist with her debut album on the way. Can't wait to hear about that. In this episode, Lexie pulls back the curtain on her journey from growing up biracial in a small town to navigating the ups and downs of Hollywood, to using her platform to raise awareness about endometriosis and empower other women to speak up. We talk about resilience, identity, mentorship, and the power of turning pain into purpose. This is a conversation full of heart, honesty, and inspiration. Let's hang with Lexie Stevenson. Welcome, Lexie.
Hi.
We should tell our listeners and our audience that you are actually my bonus niece.
Yes, I
We have the same last name, so yes, we are related.
am.
So tell us a little bit. You grew up in rural Maine, as I mentioned in the introduction. Not exactly the typical pipeline to Hollywood. I'm also from Maine. So tell me what your childhood was like in Maine and how that small town background shaped you.
I think that growing up in Maine was pretty unique. I think, being from somewhere that is rural, just because it is on the, it's on the coast, we're on the water. So I've kind of coined this term. I mean, I probably didn't come up with it, but I call myself a coastal cowgirl because I grew up partially on the water and partially, next to a bunch of farms. I grew up next to a buffalo farm. I grew up next to a regular farm that had the horses and the chickens and the cows, and all of that stuff. But growing up in Maine, I think I really loved it. I wouldn't have changed it for the world, just because I think it helped me grow up into somebody that is grounded and roots with their family and and all of that good stuff. So yeah, I think that's how it shaped me into who I am today, and I'm really grateful for it. I'm like looking out my window right now. I'm on Vinyl Haven at my parents' house, and I'm looking out the window. I'm just like, yeah, it is. I could not have asked for a better place to grow up.
It's pretty idyllic. And I imagine the feeling of being grounded is helpful when you go off to Hollywood, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it has allowed me to stay true to who I am, even in the moments where I think maybe I feel a little lost, as I'm sure most people who, are transplants into LA feel, everyone feels a little out of place there. And I think being from Maine helped me navigate those situations a little better. It was definitely a helpful thing.
I love that. So making the leap from the middle of nowhere, really, to
Yeah,
LA.
exactly.
Huge. Yeah, it's huge. What gave you the courage to chase that dream, and what did the early days look like back then for you?
You
I
know,
know you were about to go to college and then shifted.
yeah. I think my dad always told me that I was a daredevil. Like, that's what he called me all the time when I was younger. He's like, "Yeah, Lex is such a daredevil." And I think that because it was positive reinforcement to, feel the fear and do it anyway. And that's what I did. So when I'd actually spoken with one of my uncles out in LA, and he said, "Oh, let's I'm going to have you meet with some managers and agents out there, and, just so they can give you an idea of what life might look like after college," because at that point I was planning on going to SUNY Purchase. And I met with them and they wanted to sign me, and so I said, "Oh, great." But they said, "But you have to live out here." So I went back home to my parents, and my mom, as you know, who has 8 years of college, me telling her that I wasn't going to college was definitely a shock to her system. But my dad, on the other hand, was like, let's pack up the car and go. And I'm so lucky that they were both so supportive of that. And we packed up my Ford Explorer and we took Route 66 all the way out to California, right out to the Santa Monica Pier where it ends.
Wow. Were you ever afraid of making that choice, or were you just like, all in, let's give this a shot?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy because when I look back on it now, because I'm wiser, now I would be nervous to make that choice, because I'm about to move to Nashville in February. So, and that makes me a little nervous. But I remember when I was moving to LA, I had no nerves. I was just like, okay, yeah, let's go, maybe a couple weeks before we decided to do it. But I also had my mom's brother and his wife out there who I was going to be living with. So I wasn't, I didn't have any friends or really know anyone that well, but it did help make it a little easier and less scary. But yeah, I never had I look back on that now, I'm like, wow, that was crazy. I had no fear at all.
Well, and a lot of our listeners have, I'm sure, the same dream of being an actress or making it big. So I'm just curious, did you grow up acting? Tell me about your path to get there.
Yeah. So I actually grew up singing, and I remember my parents, I think, got the inkling that I had a love for it when I was in elementary school. And the lady who used to do after daycare for all of the kids, me and her friends now, and she told me, she said, yeah, you would just get on the lunch table during aftercare and start singing. And so she told my parents asked, they said, do you want to start taking voice lessons? And I said, yeah. So then I went and I started taking voice lessons with, still in my opinion, the best voice coach to ever grace this planet, Rebecca Beck. And I started with her. But there weren't a ton of opportunities to sing, to sing. And maybe we don't have a lot of we have some, but we don't have a lot of recording studios. They're all down in Portland and, whatever. So she suggested that I start doing musical theater there. And when I did that included acting. And I was like, oh, I actually really like acting as well. So that's kind of how that started. So I'd say singing started in second grade, and then maybe fourth, fifth grade I started going into the acting thing. And when I went out to LA, I just kind of wanted to pursue both, and acting took off first. So that's what I've been doing for the past couple of years up until now.
And your mom had an acting background. Didn't she do a little acting when she was young too?
Yeah, she did. I couldn't tell you the names of them now, but she did like a news. She was like a news anchor girl, and then she did a few other things. And my uncle, he was in the original Fame. So yeah, there's definitely a background there of acting,
It's in
which
your blood.
it's in my blood. Exactly. That, and the entertainment bug is in my blood. Yeah.
Sure. So tell me about what it was like growing up in Maine, biracial. You have a parent, mom is African American and dad is Caucasian. And let's face it, there's not a ton of diversity in Maine.
Yeah.
So tell me what that was like for you.
Yeah, I think if I'm being totally honest, sometimes now it serves me more than it did then. I think just because you see more and more people who look like me and who are, biracial, because I think the further we get into the timeline, the more that's been accepted. So now, you have these mixed babies as a product of that. But when I was in high school, it was a little confusing because I think sometimes, I was either too white or too black, or it was kind of hard to figure out where people wanted me to fit in, because I never felt really the self-consciousness of that, or even really, because I am biracial. I think it's always important to, see color and recognize our differences and decide to celebrate them as opposed to being blind to them. And for me, I felt like I didn't see it at all, though. Like I was blind to it just because I was black and white. So for me, I just kind of, there was no, oh, this is this side and this is this side, if that makes any sense. But I was made aware when people pointed it out, or it was like, oh yeah, Lexie's black, or, and then sometimes there would be my black friends would be like, no, Lexie's white, and it was kind of this push and pull. And what I realize is that I am whatever is convenient for the people in the conversations. So if and sometimes it's all, it definitely in high school it was all, fun and joking and whatever. But as I've gotten older, I realized I'm like, yeah, like that was almost a little bit of an identity crisis sometimes, just because you have to, what is the code switching, I think is the word for that.
But you never really were a victim of bullying or had any issues around any of that.
No, I didn't. I mean, it definitely existed in my school, but no, I wouldn't say that I was ever bullied. I'd say that comments were made then that would not be okay now. But I also had really thick skin, and I think because obviously, my dad, he is the king of, excuse my language, I don't give a shit. He's the king of that, and I think that rubbed off on me when I was in high school. So it would have taken a lot for me to feel a certain type of way. But yeah, growing up, I can definitely see how it shaped me into a person where, there may be a little bit of self-consciousness about that at some point, I guess, if that makes sense. I don't know.
Yeah.
That was
And
like a
you,
bunch of rambling, but
oh, that's okay. And you grew up going to public school, right? You graduated from
yeah.
Brunswick.
I went for all of middle school. I went to a private Christian school called Chop Point, and then after that for high school, I went to public school.
I think that's important too for our listeners to know. Like, you
Yeah.
can come from anywhere and
Yeah.
make your dream come true.
Yeah.
But speaking of dreams coming true, they started coming true as when you were on Young and the Restless, when you played the role of Maddie Ashby. So how did that happen for you? What launched that?
When I had moved out to LA, I got really homesick, and I got so homesick, and I had ended up having this audition for The Young and the Restless. Flash forward a month later, my year of deferral from SUNY purchase is up. I tell my agent, my manager, my modeling agency, my I sent an email to everybody. I said, hey, everyone, thank you so much. This year has been really telling for me. I've testing for The Young and the Restless, which basically means that you go in with two, they're probably considering two other people for your role. So it'll be you, two other people. And then at this time, they were also casting for my brother on the show. So then they were also testing that at the same time and kind of, mix matching us and seeing who would vibe. And I didn't know what to expect. I'd never been into any big studio or anything like that. And they called me into CBS, the big studio there on Fairfax and Beverly. And they called me in, and I went into this. Basically, it was like a movie theater, and there were all of the Sony executives, all the CBS executives, and I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. So I just thought it was cool to be there. I was like, there's no way I'm getting this, but this is just cool to be here, really. And they were mix matching us with different guys to see who would play the best siblings. And they brought in this guy named Noah Gary, who is still my absolute best friend to this day. And it was like the entire room just melted away, and we were talking like there was no one else in the room. And he was like, oh, you do my little sister does pageants. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. He's like, are you nervous? I was like, yeah, I'm pretty nervous. Are you nervous? He was like, no, whatever. I've done this a million times. He said, we either get it or we don't, and we just started laughing, and we went back out into the waiting room where everyone was, and everyone was gone. And they said, can you guys just wait out here for a second? And we were like, okay. And then they brought us back in. They said, oh, the camera broke. Can you guys, do the scene again? Which was total, whatever. They just couldn't commit to us in that moment because of contract stuff. But we ended up doing the scenes again. Then we left, and then we knew that we would know who got the role the following morning. So the following morning, I was just pacing back and forth in my, aunt and uncle's apartment, and they called, and my agent said, okay, I have good news and bad news. He said, what do you want first? And I said, okay, the bad news. He said, okay, bad news, you can't tell anybody, but you booked the part. And I was like, what? And
Yeah.
I was just screaming. I was screaming. I ran out to my aunt. I think I collapsed. Like, I was like, what is happening? But Yeah, and then went to set. I had my fitting the next day. I saw Noah there. I knew it was going to be him because I was like, okay, if I got it, then there's no way he didn't. And that was that. And then I got to film and be on set with my best friend for every day for 3 years. And yeah, so it was a very ideal situation. It was a lot of fun.
That was a fun ride, and you earned an Emmy nomination for your role.
Yeah, I earned a daytime or daytime pre-Emmy nomination. But yeah, that was also very cool because I never thought I'd be going to the Emmys, let alone getting any sort of nomination for one. So I was like, okay.
Yeah.
But it's in those moments that growing up in Maine helped ground, humble, and do all of the things that it needed to do.
Yeah. And at the same time, you must have been starstruck. I know I would have been like, what?
Absolutely. My first daytime Emmy, I saw like half the cast of The Office when that was going on. And I was like, oh my God, I'm texting my girlfriends back home. We used to watch The Office, when on the weekends or after soccer games or whatever. I'm like, guys, like The Office, the people from The Office are here. And they're like, what? And I'm like, wow, this is so cool. I totally had imposter syndrome for sure. I was like, I do not belong here.
Right. I mean, now all of a sudden you're part of the club, like you were watching it and now you're in it. Like
Yeah.
I think that's so cool. So I think that some of our listeners also might like to learn, like, how do you go about getting an agent? How does the whole process work?
Yeah, absolutely. I was really lucky in the fact that I would never call myself a nepo baby, but I did have contacts because of my family living out in LA and, being a part of the industry. So for me, my uncle had set those meetings up, but after time, it's super normal to outgrow, manager or especially agents mostly. And so when that happened with me, I signed out that I'm not going to gatekeep anything. I'm totally giving away all the secrets, but go on. If anybody out there is listening to this and wants to get an agent, make sure you have a good acting reel. Go, probably like $1,000. Go, which is a lot, but invest. Go get an acting reel made. Then go on to IMDb Pro and sign up for the premium plan. Then you're going to go on and you're going to ask ChatGPT what the best agencies are for whatever level actor you are. If you're like, I'm a beginner or I've done this or whatever, and ChatGPT is going to give you a list of agencies that would want to meet with you. Because obviously, if you're brand new, you're not going to want to go to WME or CAA or whatever, because those are for, the Brad Pitts and Leonardo DiCaprios and whatever. But go into IMDb, search the agency that ChatGPT, and then there's going to be an email for all of the agents on there. You're going to go. Yeah, get the email. Don't email like the info at agency.com, whatever. Email the, John Doe at agency, like really go straight to the source. And then after that, follow up after a week and then do that 3 times. And eventually someone will respond. And if they say we're not interested right now, that they saw your name enough to know that you're around. And that's the thing, is you really just want to get on people's radar. But there are also so many boutique agencies that take on smaller actors. So I'm sure that you'll get from some of them, but also recognize that you don't want anybody to be doing you a favor. You're going to be making them money at some point. So don't just sign on with somebody because you're like, oh my God, they want me, no.
Yeah.
You want to make sure that you find the right fit for you. So yeah.
No, and I love that you said that you mentioned the Nepo baby thing, because I think no matter what, it's so important to use your connections and your network, and don't be asked for help. Because I, in my own world, it's like so many people want to recommend a guest for the show or want to help me, to monetize or whatever, and every time someone says that to me, I'm like, yes, please, yes, please, yes, please.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they add value to your life, number one. And number two, you just don't know what the next connection is going to lead to.
Yeah,
Really
absolutely. I could not agree more. I think especially now with acting, I almost want to say it's a little bit easier to network because that you want to network with the casting directors who you are getting put in front of when you audition, but with music, it's really different. You have to be networking with everybody. And I'm learning that now. And on social media, I know it looks different, but I am not a social person at all. I hate socializing. Yeah, so it's hard for me to, to get out, but I'm learning how to do it because yeah, you never know. You never know what a lead is going to lead to. You never know. And I think a lot of people, when they do get into the entertainment industry, they just immediately want to, meet the Leonardo DiCaprios and Brad Pitts and, and Angelina Jolie's of the world. But in reality, those are not going to be the people who, can help. It's going to be the people that you meet in acting class, or, you meet at showcases or at the theater, or, whatever it may be. Always accepting help that is the name of the game for sure.
And Hollywood and some of the big names. So it does look so glamorous for those of us on the outside. What is it really like? Is it really that glamorous?
Not that, no. No.
No?
No, I don't. I think there are certain things, of course, that, are just blow your mind. And those things would be movie premieres that you get to go to, events for certain brands, or, there are definitely a lot of brands and a lot of production teams that throw these crazy parties that are, you just could only dream of. But I would say, day to day, and the reason I think that this is important is because so many people compare themselves to people on social media, especially people who are in LA and whatever. But I think on the inside, you go to those things and then you go home, and I think it's actually pretty lonely. Like, LA is a very lonely place. I was just talking to my boyfriend about this. I think a lot of people have their defense up a lot of the time because they think everybody else is on defense, because everyone's kind of trying to, be like, okay, who's the best here, who has something to offer, what can I get from this person? It's a lot of that. So everybody's defenses go up because they don't want to feel like, okay, is this person talking to me because they want to be my friend, or are they talking to me because they want something from me? So there's a lot of that there. So I think the biggest reason I want to move to Nashville is because of that. Like, the culture there, I feel like, has gotten, it's tough. It's really tough to make friends because of that. Even from me going to someone else, a lot of the time it'll be the same reaction of like, okay, does this girl want to be my friend because she wants something from me, or, does she actually want to be my friend? And, so I think there's a lot of that, as well. But yes, premieres and the brand parties and
Party at the Met.
yeah, well, New York is always glamorous for me, but I've also never lived there, so I don't know. But yeah, like the Met party was absolutely, like, that was, and that's the thing. Like, some of those events really are dreams, but it's also, only a couple hours out of the month, and then the rest of the month is kind of like, okay, what, what are we doing? But so yeah, I'd say it's both for sure. But I think there's this idea that a lot of people have in their heads of LA that might not quite match up when they move there. And the only reason I say that is because, that's what it was for me for a while. That first year, I was really lonely and I didn't know anyone. So I wasn't going to the premieres or the whatever. But I guess that's the paying your dues and doing the hard work so you can go to those things.
Well, not just LA, but fame in general. I would think fame in general would be difficult once you get to a certain level, right? Because
Yeah, I'm
everybody
sure.
wants a piece of you. Oh,
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure, yeah, and it's true because, when I was on The Young and the Restless, I will say I had a lot more friends than I do now. And when I came off The Young and the Restless, I think I lost touch with a lot of people after that, and that was a horrible feeling. I mean, it was just awful. But now I've had some fame at a much smaller scale, I think, than, obviously the A-listers and whatnot. And it was an important lesson to learn, and be like, oh, okay, so some people are going to come and go and be there for a season, but I would always prefer to build long lasting friendships and relationships, so that if tomorrow I decided that I wanted to go and work at Walmart, everyone would still love it. The people in my life would still love me, and, and want to be a part of that journey too,
yeah. No, I love that. Now, you also starred in 5 different movies, right? Did I get
Yeah,
that number?
probably. Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Now, was that transition difficult or different from being in a, so I don't know, I should guess I should go back to the soap opera realm. Are you filming every day when you're on a soap? I mean, how often are you? Yeah, you're in studio every day. So same with a movie set, or how was that different for you?
Yeah, it actually, that was similar to the movie set. I would say the biggest difference is that when you're filming a soap opera, you're going every day and you have about 30 minutes to shoot a scene. You have 15 minutes rehearsal, 15 minutes to put it down and, film it. Whereas with a movie, you'll work on a scene for like, I don't know, 2 hours, 3 hours, and you have all this time. I would say the amount you're filming pretty much stays the same. It's just you're with the soap opera, you're getting a lot more content in a much shorter amount of time.
Did you prefer one over the other?
Yeah, I liked the soap opera setup. It just kind of was like, know your lines, get in there, do your thing, and then move on to another episode or scene or whatever it might be. And that's the thing too with the soap opera, the cast is so huge that when they're filming someone else's scene, you might have an hour or two off to just you know walk around, do, I don't know, watch a movie, whatever it is you might want to do. You're on set for about 14 hours a day, but they have the coziest dressing rooms with TVs and your robes, so it's like being at home.
Why do you have to be on set for 14 hours for a 30-minute? Why? What
Well,
makes sense to me?
yeah, so we will shoot close to 3 episodes a day for The Young and the Restless. So I will probably have in that day, I don't know, maybe 5 scenes, but those scenes might not film in order. They might film one of my scenes and then there's probably, I think, 4 families on The Young and the Restless. So it'll be my family scene. Then it'll be the next family scene. Then the next family scene. Okay, and now it's back to our scene. And then the next family. So it takes a long time to do that, but we have to get all of it done, in that day because there's so much money, going. I think they had told me this crazy statistic that for every 30 minutes we waste, it's like $250,000 that yeah, something like that, because these cameras that they're renting, we have 6 or 8 cameras on set at a time because it's multicam, and they're renting those cameras by the hour, and the rent on them is just
Why
astronomical.
how come studios don't have their own cameras? Why are they renting cameras?
I don't know. I can't imagine that they wouldn't have bought them
Yeah, it's
now, and I also could be totally wrong. This was told to me by I think it was like a set manager or something. So he could have been wrong, but that's what he told. He might have been telling, I was younger back then, so he might have been telling me that so I could get my shit together. But exactly. He was like, okay, let's get it together. They're costing money here. Um,
that's
yeah,
funny.
that's possible too.
So I have to tell you, I grew up watching Young and the Restless, love it. And I always wondered like how they keep the actors for so long. Some of these actors have been on soap operas for 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think definitely the benefit is how they keep them there. They also, as you go on, you also have more power to negotiate your contract. So I'd assume that they're not as locked in. When Noah and I were on there, our contracts were very strict. Like for the first 3 years, you guys cannot film anything else. But some of the other actors, the longer they're on there, they can negotiate, okay, well, if something's going to pay me over $1 million, you guys have to let me go and do that. And then I'll come back to the show or, whatever it may be. So I'm sure there's lots of benefits in there. And then also the longer you're on the show, you get your own dressing room, like permanent one that's yours. So if you're on set, that will be your dressing room.
I know. I'm thinking like Victor and Nikki and those are the character names. But I'm like, I guess I'm more surprised that they wouldn't aspire to do movies or bigger roles, and they were
Yeah.
happy to be on daytime TV. That's all.
Yeah, no, I'm sure. And I'm sure they want to, but take it from me. Like when I came off The Young and the Restless, it was really hard to book anything else. And I think the reason for that is you get pigeonholed like pretty hard. Whenever I was going in person before, COVID hit, that was the first question, is like, oh, how's The Young and the Restless? And I'm like, no, they're seeing me just as, Maddie Ashby, which is great for my fan base because I absolutely love that. I'm super proud of the role, and I love Maddie Ashby. But when it comes to booking other roles, it can be really hard because people see you as this, like, look at Penn Badgley, for example. You know, he was on Gossip Girl, was the stalker, you know, spoiler alert, he was the stalker at the end, and now he's the lead on that TV show You, playing a stalker. So it's kind of like, it would be very hard to see him in any other role besides, you know, kind of the creepy guy stalker role. So I think it kind of works that way for soap actors as well. And it's also just a different style of acting. So
you and Noah were twins on that show. So what happened to them? What happened to Maddie?
So I get updates all the time from my mom because she has like the Google alerts whenever my name comes up. And apparently I'm at college. I know that. And
Okay.
apparently something just happened where, I don't know, like I got into a lot of trouble or something, and my mom had to come and save me, or I don't know, something like that happened. So there's something going on, but there's been a lot of speculation if they'll bring Noah and I back because our dad just went back on the show. So if that happened, that would be so fun, and I'd love that.
Okay, so there's not somebody else playing your role. There's not somebody else playing the role. So they just refer to you on the show.
Yeah, I'm not dead and I wasn't replaced. So there's
So that's the update on Maddie. What was Noah's character's name? Was it
Charlie.
Charlie? All right. For all you Young and the Restless fans, you know, there
Mm-hmm.
may be a return of Maddie and Charlie.
Yeah, hopefully. It would be a lot of fun. It'd be a pretty nostalgic thing for sure.
The fans should write in to the producers and say, we want Maddie and Charlie back.
They should. I encourage that.
Start a campaign right here. Let's start it right here.
Yeah, exactly. They're campaigning to get us back on the show.
That's right. Let's see. You are moving from acting. Let's bring people up to date. So you are now stepping into a country music career. And you
Yes.
have your first single,
Yes.
and it's called Cowboy
Pillows.
Pillows.
Yes.
Where it's one of those songs that gets stuck in your head. I want to play it. Let's see if we can pull it up and play it, unless you want to sing it for us.
No, that's okay. You can pull it up.
All right, let's see if I can play it. Hold on. I'm going to your TikTok. Is this it? Is it the right one? Right. Here we are. There we go. I'll dance.
At the end of your long day in this country king size bed, got a cowboy.
So there's a little snippet of the song. Now I have that on replay because I've listened to it so many times and I love it. So great.
Yay.
Great job. So I know you wrote it. Tell me how you came up with the idea for Cowboy Pillows.
Yeah, I had gone out on a date with this guy in Nashville, and he and I talked about traditional marriage and, you know, the trad wives traditions and whatnot, and that kind of sparked me wanting to write a song about, because God knows I'm working and I have a million things going on. However, I do not frown upon being a housewife at all, you know, and I think housewives get a bad rap because traditional marriage, I think, sometimes gets a bad rap, and people are like, oh, that's boring. And of course, sometimes like it can be oppressive to women. Like there are lots of men out there who should, you know, are not, you know, aren't good leaders. But for this particular instance, I really liked this guy. I really liked what he was talking about with traditional marriage. He's very sweet. So I brought that into the writer's room, but I said, I don't want it to be boring. I don't want it to be traditional, like, oh, I'm just coming home and he's coming home and I'm making him dinner and, you know, all this stuff. I said, I want it to be kind of fun and sexy, like, you know, like a sexy housewife, you know? And I had also heard the term Cowboy Pillows. So I was like, okay, let's see if we can marry the two. And my producer and the writers, who were all men and honor and love their wives more than anything, were like, yeah, he was like, sometimes after a long day, you just want to go home and put your head on your wife's chest and she's got a great set. And, and I'm just like, but I loved it because they were so respectful and so vocal about how important their wives were in their lives and allowing them to do the things that they do. So that was how it started. And now, of course, I'm a year and a half into dating the guy who, inspired that song. So yeah, that's kind of how we had come up with the idea. And then, of course, those are my feelings, but those are also the feelings of, the writers and stuff, which I thought was very cool that everyone was set on fire with that idea because of just how much they all loved and honored their wives. And I was like, there was one point I was like crying, which you would never guess with a song like that, because it's kind of funny, it's a kind of funny, fun song. So, but yeah, at some points it was emotional because I was like, wow, like these guys really honor and love their wives. And I wanted to make that into a song that they can all sing, being, but still being like fun and sexy and flirty and whatever.
Well, I think you nailed it. And you just said a term I've never heard, tradwise. That's the nickname for traditional.
Did you make it? I've been seeing it on, all over TikTok and stuff. It's like trad wives, which I get, traditional housewife. And I was like, but I look at these girls' TikToks, the ones who are the trad wives of TikTok and Instagram, and the comments underneath them just drag them through the mud. Like, oh, when you discover freedom, and you have to find yourself and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, what if being a mom and cooking all day is like what she wants to do? That sounds great to me. I don't know if I could ever sit completely still. I couldn't. But if somebody else wanted to do that, like, I don't blame you. Being a mom is like the hardest job ever.
And I don't want to make this about me, but I want to say that I've had both. I had a career, and then I was a single mom. And when I had my second child, and stayed home with Haley and Sam and raised them during the early years. And I will say it's interesting that you say that, because when I was a stay-at-home mom, you feel like your value is tied to your job. I mean, people do not respect the fact that your job, I will tell you, staying home and raising kids was the hardest job I ever did. I never looked at it as a job. Absolutely didn't look at it that way at all. It was a blessing in my life to be able to have that time with my kids when they were young, and certainly in their formative years. I think that was really important for me and for them. But that being said, I do remember everybody asks, so what do you do? What do you do for work? Right?
Yeah.
And it was very, very difficult. And I had a pretty high paying career before I chose to transition to being a stay-at-home mom. And it was difficult when it was time for me to go back to work. So re-enter the workforce. It was a really good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that it's so cool too that you have both points of view on that, because it's totally cool to like both or want to do both. You know what I mean? And I think that's what I'm getting at. Like, who, if, as long as you're happy and you're in a situation that is good for you, then, whatever. Who cares? Who cares?
You have to make the best choice for your family, your partner, whatever. You've got to figure that out. And you can have both. Not to say you can't have a great career. Tell me about, so now you've got that. Now, I know the answer to this, but I'm hoping you say what I think you're going to say. Do you remember the first song you wrote or performed? I'm thinking of the one, I'll just tell you what the one I'm thinking of. I'm thinking of the Butterfly song. Was that the first song you wrote?
For this project? Or just in general?
Well, I'm thinking of the one you sang to us on the balcony at your grandparents' house about your friend.
Oh my God. Yes. Yeah. So that was the first song. That probably was actually the first song I'd ever written. And I mean, it evolved so much now. I mean, it's completely different from what it was. I think I came up with that song when I was in a bathtub in LA, staying at a hotel or something, and I just started singing it. But I was recording because we were doing this photo, where there was rose petals and whatnot everywhere. And I was just bored and started singing the song about a butterfly. But yeah, I had brought that into the writer's room for when we started working on this project. And yeah, that was the first one to I think that was even the first song we wrote on this project, like that we finished, I should say. But yeah.
Now, you wrote that story about a friend of yours from your childhood. Can you tell our listeners what it's about and the name of it and when it will be coming out?
Yeah, absolutely. So the song probably won't be coming out until, which is so crazy because everybody wants it to come out now, and it's taken everything in me to not release it now because that's what everybody wants.
I know.
But the reason that we're doing that is because of strategy right now. The Cowboy Pillows is making the radio rounds, and I want Butterfly to make the radio rounds, but Cowboy Pillows won't be done on the radio rounds until February. So that's probably when Butterfly will come out, so that Butterfly can then go in that funnel. But I promise the song that's coming next is going to be just as good. But yeah, so Butterfly will probably come out somewhere around January, February-ish. But the song is about a girl who I would say was even, an acquaintance. And I think that the reason I say that is because I want to spread the message that no matter how small you might, or how small your actions might feel in a day, they can feel really big to someone else, no matter who you are, who they are. And yeah, I wrote this song about a girl who was really bullied in my high school, and I was friends, unfortunately, with a mean girl in my high school, and we had walked by this girl at lunch, and she was kind of gothic, and now looking back, I'm like, her style was absolutely sick. I thought it was really cool. She had, orange hair and green hair and, and the rip stockings, and she looked cool. So, however, people I was with had walked by and said, nice Halloween costume, and had laughed, and she was sitting at lunch completely alone, and she didn't say anything, and it broke my heart. It felt like kicking, I don't want to put her in the imagery of a helpless animal, but that's how it felt to me at the time. It felt, it felt really cruel, like very, very cruel. And so because of that, I decided to sit with her, because that's horrible to feel alone and have people being mean to you. So I sat with her. And she didn't say anything, and I didn't say anything, except she had this butterfly tattoo on her arm, on her wrist. And we were in high school at the time, so I thought that was also very cool. I was like, oh, that's so cool. You have a tattoo, can you tell me what it's about? And she said, it is a butterfly tattoo for the Butterfly Project, which is a self-harm and suicide prevention organization. And at the time, I wasn't knowledgeable. I was ignorant to the fact that she had, these cuts on her arms, and I didn't know what they were. For me, it was just, scar, birthmark. I didn't know what they were, but I asked her about it, and, she briefly said, yeah, we put the butterfly on our wrist to remind us to not hurt ourselves. And then it kind of clicked with me, and I was kind of like, okay, so she has this thing on her wrist to, and I actually now have a star tattoo. Not that I struggle with that, but I struggle with anxiety. So whenever I look at this, I'm like, okay, no fear, and I kind of got that idea from her. And that was it. And, and I just was like, really cool tattoo. That was it. 2 weeks later, her name was Jessica Homan, and she took her life 2 weeks later. And flash forward 2 years later, my dad ended up on the ventilator with COVID. And you might be like, what does this have to do with that? Well, her mom is the one who fed my dad while he was on the ventilator through his tube. And when he woke up, she said, is your daughter Lexie Stevenson? And he said, yeah. And she said, well, she made a really big impact in Jessica's life. And apparently Jessica had gone home that day and had written how much it meant to her. That I had sat at the table with her, and I'm not crying because I'm like, wow, Lexie, you're such a good person. It's just like that was such a big moment for me, because it made me realize you just never know what someone's going through. The words that you say have such a big impact on the people you're talking to, and you don't have to like what someone's wearing. You don't have to like what they're doing with their life. You don't have to, but sometimes just it's better to either keep your mouth shut or find something that you do like and praise that, as much as you can, because it can make the world of difference for someone. And I think everybody struggles a little bit, obviously, with insecurity and all of that stuff. So I think it's just really important that no matter what, we always remember to be kind to one another, no matter what. I think, even with all of the, political stuff that's going on and, all that stuff, you still just put that aside, put disagreements and all that stuff aside, and just be kind to people.
Yeah. And social media has made it even worse. But thank you for sharing that story, because I do think it's an important message to get out to people that at the end of the day, be kind and celebrate people's uniqueness.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It should always be number one. That should always be number one.
Yeah. So, and thankfully your dad recovered from COVID and
Yes. Oh,
suffered a
yeah. My dad is alive, by the way.
he suffered he suffered some PTSD from being on a ventilator for a while
Yeah.
and struggling for so long, and it was very scary for the whole family. But made it
Yeah.
through. He's a tough guy.
Yeah. He's a tough
So
cookie.
back to Cowboy Pillows. It's doing great. I know that it's been released all over on Spotify and Apple, so people can listen to it there. And it's starting to make its radio circuit, you said. And you mentioned something about the husbands that love their wives so much. And I think about like, when you think about Cowboy Pillows and you don't try to think of it in a sexual way, to me, it's like this comfort, right? Of being
Yeah.
able to come home after a long day and put your head on your wife's chest and just feel that safety and security of the
Yeah.
heartbeat and, just that
Yeah.
closeness. So yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Having the wife be your peace.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Can you talk about the next song that's coming out, or is that?
I can. The name of the next song that's coming out is called Good Time Gone. It's actually the first time I'm announcing this.
Yay.
Yeah, it's called Good Time Gone, and it's coming out, I think, September 12th, but that is subject to change. But I'm pretty sure that's when it'll be coming out. And it is a very fun song. It's another one of my favorites. And the song is about what it sounds like, having a good time, hanging out with the girls, having this stupid breakup, but kind of moving on from the breakup, like whatever. I have my girls, I'm ready to go out and and hang out and party and have some fun. And this song was actually written, I had gone through a breakup, and I by just really crappy guy, and who made me question a lot of my self-worth. And then I started going into country music. I went out into Nashville. I had a great night out, and I was like, there's this TikTok sound. It's like, oh, I wasn't sad. I just needed to break up with my boyfriend, and that was kind of the inspiration for this song, because life just got so much better, and now I'm with this amazing guy, and I couldn't be more grateful that I had gone through that to get to where I am now, and the happiness I have now, and recognizing like, okay, yeah, I did not deserve any of that. But instead of making a sad song about that, I made a very fun song, a very happy song, because I was happy I waited to write anything about that until I was completely moved on from the situation. Because big piece of advice I have to the girls out there is it might feel like the world is ending right now, but when you get to the other side of that breakup, or even bad friendship, or whatever it might be, the world just gets so much more beautiful and fun.
I love great advice. And I have found that to be true too. Oftentimes almost always, when you break up with one, there's something better that the universe has in store for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Every time.
Yeah. So let's move on to your advocacy and endometriosis awareness. You've been incredibly vocal about your struggle with endometriosis, and now you're partnering with the Endometriosis Association. So, first of all, what is endometriosis? I did my homework, and so about 10% of young females are suffering with it globally. So this is not just a local issue. But anyway, tell me about your journey with it and why you decided to become so involved.
Yeah, absolutely. So endometriosis is when the lining of your uterus, that stuff that I call it glue, but your uterus is kind of shaped like this, and then on the lining it has this kind of glue-like tissue that attaches, it lets the blood sit there. When you have an egg, that's either fertilized or not fertile, whatever it might be, it helps stick all of that stuff there. And then when you get your period, your uterus is kind of trying to twist itself like a sponge, and that's what makes all the blood come out. And however, that sticky stuff that your uterus is working so hard to get the blood off of, it's really sticky. That same tissue grows not just there, but it also grows in my uterus, in the muscles around my uterus. It grows on my ovaries. It grows on my small and large intestines. It grows in a lot of places where it should not be. And for a lot of women, it can go all the way up to up into their chest. It can grow everywhere. And the reason that that's not good is, one, because it's painful, because the tissue is like glue, so it's sticking your organs and stuff together, which is not comfortable. It makes cramping a lot worse, and it just causes a bunch of other issues. Like when I went to go get my endometriosis surgery, we figured out that my uterus was pulled way to the right, like way to the right, and that was because of endometriosis. It makes sex extremely painful. It, can give you headaches. It can cause anxiety. There's just so many side effects that come along with it, which is why I decided to become such an involved part of the Endometriosis Foundation, because I saw them trying to make change and create awareness, and they have done that just in astronomical amounts. And I wanted to be a part of that, because I think I was given the platform when I was on The Young and the Restless, and I hope I will continue, by the grace of God, that I will continue to have one. And I think that has to be used for something bigger than myself still. So yeah, so I guess that's kind of why I got involved. I recognized that there was a big issue. So
Yeah, that's great. So are you still involved?
yeah, absolutely. We just did the Blossom Ball recently. We're trying to work on an event in Nashville for some. There's just so many people who are affected by it, and so we're trying to bring more events to people around the U.S. because we're based in New York. So we're trying to spread our wings and stuff.
Wonderful. That's great. And we'll have some information on that on the show notes too.
Yeah,
So you had a lot of success in a short lifespan.
yeah.
You've done a lot as a young woman. What does success look like to you now? How would you define it now?
That is a really good question. I think that right now, I'm sure it will evolve. The answer will continue to evolve for me. But I think right now, my version of success would be, and I don't even know if it's possible, but being 100% confident in whatever it is that I'm doing, and being proud of the work that I'm being 100% proud of the work and confident in whatever it is that I'm doing. That to me is success, because as long as I'm proud and happy with it, I think that is all that matters. However, I have not mastered that yet, because I still, and you could ask my parents, I think 2 nights ago, I was crying. I'm like, oh my God, is this song good? Like, should I even be doing that? I'm like, I should just go and work at Walmart or something. But not that there's anything wrong with that, but there is a lot of self-doubt. So I think the day that I'm able to figure out how to be 100% confident in what it is that I'm doing will be the day that I feel like successful for me.
No, but thank you for sharing that, because again, I think that's important for young women to hear that, no matter how successful you seem on the
Yeah.
outside, and
Yeah.
people would look at you and think you're beautiful, you have a great guy in your life, you've
Yeah.
had a lot of success, what
Yeah.
most of us would define as success, and yet you still struggle behind the scenes with
Yeah.
confidence and feeling like you're good enough and
Yeah.
all of those things, that I think people would be really surprised to learn that. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, my boy, Eric said that the other day. He was like, people just like, he's like, you are so crazy for just like, having, but it's such a human thing to have self-doubt. And I do, it is the biggest thing I struggle with and work on a day-to-day basis. And whether you're Christian or not Christian, I am. So that's, I find it through God and just reading the Bible and figuring out, how can I get my confidence through him, and recognizing that where I fail, he will fill in, he'll add his supernatural to my natural. But even if you don't believe in God and it's the universe or whatever it may be, I just think it's important that everyone answer to something bigger than themselves and find confidence through that. That's at all possible. Even if that's, your family and getting it from your family, which is where I obviously get a huge amount of my confidence from, my dad. We were in the living room and he was like, have you forgotten who you are? You are a Stevenson. He's like, what are we talking about self-doubt for? And I was like, and every time he says that, I get so reinvigorated. I'm like, you're right. I'm a Stevenson. I come from a freaking strong family that has faced horrors together, and we are still here and talk to each other every Sunday. Okay, Lexie, get it together.
Yeah, but can we explore that a little deeper? Because I'm really, really curious about the self-doubt thing. I struggle from it too. I always
Yeah,
have.
absolutely.
59.
Yeah, absolutely.
It doesn't go away. But I want to explore that with you because I'm just like, what do you think is the root of that? Where do you think that comes from for us?
Have thought about that question. Just I've mulled it over, trying to find an answer before I go to sleep at night. And to be honest, I don't know. I think social media definitely hasn't helped. I don't think for anybody, but I think it probably started before that. And I just don't know. I think the more you expect from yourself and the more that you want to accomplish, I think the more self-doubt you have, honestly. And I think that that comes from that you have these goals and you want to see things happen a certain type of way, and when they don't happen that way, you almost feel like you failed yourself in some way. And that might be part of why I feel self-doubt, but I still try to mull it over. I think also I think another big thing is that when I moved to LA, a lot of people, Maine, and even now, like new people I meet who don't live in LA, really assume that I am this like LA girl who has zero substance and, and all this stuff. And that can make me really nervous in social situations because I'm like, okay, they're expecting me to be super LA and dumb and, and whatever it might be. And then I end up being that in those situations because I'm like, oh my God, like I'm so nervous trying to not be that I feel like I end up being that, and then people are passing judgment. So a lot of my insecurity comes from that. I mean, even we just went to a party the other night on the island, and I was nervous out of my mind to talk to anybody because I was like, oh my God, I'm like, okay, they probably think I'm going to be like all LA and, and I don't want to do that. And I don't know what they're going to ask me. And, they might be expecting me to be somebody that I'm not, all these thoughts go through my head, and then I get really nervous and I just kind of shut down. And I'm like, okay, I'm not supposed to be here,
You're doing a lot of projecting. Yeah. Onto, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I just get anxious and I get overwhelmed. I'm like, okay, let's go, and then I get upset with myself because I'm like, okay, Lexie, like that's not, and then we get home and my dad and mom are like, everyone was so happy to see you. They were so happy you were there. Everyone said you look beautiful. And I'm like, they did, like meanwhile, I'm like, okay, I must be psychotic because I'm sitting in the corner like, oh my God, everybody hates me. Like, you know what I mean?
I guess if I had one superpower, I wish that I could allow other people to see themselves the way that we see them. Because that would be such a beautiful gift because
Yeah.
I heard you said imposter syndrome earlier, and I suffer from it too. I always wonder, like, even with this podcast, like, why would anybody want to listen to what I have to say? Who am I?
Yeah.
Like I'm always having those messages, and I have to say, you know what? I'm just as important. My voice is just as important as anybody else's. But I have to keep reminding myself of that because I didn't follow the path. I majored in journalism, but I didn't follow the path when I was younger. I decided to have a family instead. And so now that I'm entering this and having this, midlife pivot and
Yeah.
trying to pursue a dream of mine
Yeah.
that I've had inside me from as long as I can remember,
Yeah.
I have those same thoughts though. And it doesn't, that's what I'm saying. It doesn't necessarily has nothing to do with your age or where you're from but I will say, it's this comparison thing where you're constantly comparing yourself to people who have already done it and already been and made the mistakes. And,
Yeah.
so that's what I struggle with. It's like, I want to be a certain level. I want to be Barbara Walters, but I didn't realize that Barbara Walters had to,
Yeah, absolutely. And she probably felt the same things.
steps in the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's definitely something else that when I do, I think half the time I think to myself, I'm like, why do I want to be famous? And I'm like, the biggest reason is definitely just to spread the message about the things that I want to spread a message about, which would obviously be endometriosis. And then also letting everybody know, like, hey, here's the big secret. Everyone in Hollywood, everyone who's famous, everyone you look up to is so insecure, and that's normal. And I mean, I can't, there's so anyone, I was on set with, and I know you know who, and we can't say because I had signed an NDA, but I was on set with one of the biggest superstars ever recently. And they were nervous out of their minds, and I could not believe it. And when I say biggest superstar, there's not a single person listening to this podcast who would not know who this is. I could not believe it. And they said straight, they were like, okay, I'm nervous, and was shaking it off. And meanwhile, they have an entire set around them, bodyguards, hair people, a set that's probably cost $5 million per 5 minutes, and the whole thing. And they're sitting there like, I'm nervous. And I just was like,
yeah.
Okay. Everyone feels that. And after that, I was like, okay, everyone feels that. Everyone.
You know what? And it's okay to feel that way. And it's okay to have those moments of self-doubt. And it's okay to say, because it gives you a chance to reflect and grow.
Yeah.
So, that's a good. All right. We're going to end it up with some quick hits. Here we go. What's your go-to pump-up song before a performance?
Oh my gosh, what is it? Probably that song is, I can't remember the name of it, but
I just kind of.
No, it's okay. Actually, I'm going to go with the different one. Party for You by Charlie XCX is my pump up song right now.
That's your pump up song. Okay. I like my next question. Dream country music collab.
Megan Maroney.
Megan Maroney?
Yeah, I love her.
I would pick Dolly Parton because I just think she's a legend.
My gosh, wait, I take it all back. Dolly Parton, of course. Yeah, probably Dolly Parton. Oh my God, wait, there's so many good ones coming into my head. Okay.
I know.
Dolly Parton, Shania Twain, Megan Maroney.
Love.
Yeah.
Love.
Yeah.
Love.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Those would be my three. Megan Maroney, Shania Twain, and Dolly Parton. Megan Maroney better feel like really good that I'm lumping her in with the two like biggest legends ever.
Pretty good company.
Yeah.
Right. What is one thing that fans would be surprised to know about you?
I love animals more than I love people. I don't know if that's surprising, but it is. So it is true to my core. Yeah, I love animals more than I love people. And I've had 3 bunny rabbit pets in my life.
And you currently have Bella, your German Shepherd.
Yeah, I currently have my dog, Bella, German Shepherd, and I would gladly die for her.
Oh, I know, which she almost did when she fell in the water here at my house.
Yes, I know. Oh my gosh, she has like a death wish. I'm like, Bella.
We live here in Sarasota on the water, and one night we're all outside having too much fun, and Bella was out with us, and all of a sudden I'm like, where's Bella? Does anyone see Bella?
She was out swimming with the sharks, just hanging out. I think it's because I jumped into the pool, and I think that she thought I jumped into the water.
Yeah.
And then I think that's what happened, because it's so unlike her to just jump into the water. I was underwater for a minute, so definitely possible.
And the poor thing, she was swimming around, and finally we rescued her.
I know, you found her. You were like, wait, I think I hear, oh my gosh. Yeah,
but anyway, Bella made it out safe, but we were like, I guess Bella's a water dog. But
yeah, she was exactly. I didn't know she knew how to swim. I was like, okay, girlfriend.
And she knew how to swim. She was looking out for her mama.
Yeah.
All right, acting or singing? Which one feels scarier?
Acting.
Okay.
Yeah, acting definitely feels scarier. I think singing is a little bit more straightforward. You know if you need to hit the notes. You know what notes you need to hit, and you know what you need to do, and it's pretty easy to determine if you did good or bad. Acting's really hard to measure that. It is very hard to measure that for me. So that's probably why it would be scarier.
Well, and singing's probably a little more solo, right? Acting, you're also having to work with another character generally.
Yeah. And you want to do well for them. You want to show up for them as well, so you want to do your best. So that can be pretty nerve-wracking because you have a lot of people depending on you. Music is similar in that way, except you mostly want to do well for yourself, because if the song's bad, everyone's going to look at you and be like, that's your fault.
That just made me think of something. When you're singing, do you feel like you go into a character? So when you're acting, you're actually playing a character. You're not Lexie Stevenson. But are you Lexie Stevenson when you're singing in your head? Yes, you are.
Yeah, totally. And I think, I don't know if that's good or bad, because I'm such a weirdo. And sometimes I will look back at my, videotapes of my performances, and I'm like, gosh, you're so weird. But then I'm also I'm like, I love that though. Like, I love how weird I am.
And I love videos. I think they're great.
Yeah. So, yeah.
All right. What's the best advice you've ever received?
The only thing stopping you is you, and that's from my mom.
I love that. I was going to
Yeah.
ask who your mentors are, but I'm guessing they're mom and dad.
Totally mom and yeah, I would say mom, dad. Yeah, I'm sure there's other smaller ones in there, but just I take whatever they say and I take it straight to the brain and to the heart. I think I could not take what anyone else says as seriously as what, as what they say. But Eric has actually grown into that for me as well. He's totally taught me how to stress less and become more of myself. So he's it'll take time, of course, for him to build up the equity that my parents have. Um but yeah, my parents for sure they're my sounding board. I call them. That's another surprising thing about me. I call my parents, no joke, on the Holy Bible sometimes 10, 20 times a day.
Yeah, you have a very close relationship with your parents. You're very lucky.
Yeah, super,
Yeah.
super close.
Yeah, they are your biggest fans for sure.
Yeah,
So it feels good to have them they've got your back, that's for
they
sure.
do. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, they're great. You've got a great support network around you.
Yeah.
You definitely do. So let's wrap it up by asking the question I told you I would ask you. What advice would you give your younger self?
Well, it's very funny because this actually has to do with what we were talking about, self-doubt and confidence and whatever. But the advice I would give to my younger self is just do it loudly, and do not care what anyone says or thinks. Just do not care, because it does not matter, and people genuinely do not care that much to make fun of you, or I don't know, whatever the fear may be there when you're nervous about whatever it is you're doing, or wondering if it's cringy or if people are going to like it, or whatever it may be. People just don't even care. So get over yourself, girl, and do it anyway.
I love that. And I will add to that remember, whatever you're going through, it's a phase in life. It's
Yeah.
temporary. It all
Yeah,
passes. And you
exactly.
eventually find your tribe.
Yeah.
If you don't have it in high school or you don't have it when you're younger, you'll find it.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. Be patient. Well, this was awesome. Thank you so much for being here, for hanging with me today.
Thank you for having me on, Sharon. I had so much fun. This is like the most fun I've ever had doing a podcast.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you very much. And we will chat soon. Peace
Talk
out.
to you soon. Bye.